Masturbation may be older than civilization, older than agriculture, and according to some scientists, possibly older than humans themselves, which creates a strange problem. Because if you were alive 28,000 years ago, life was already difficult enough. Imagine waking up in a cave in the middle of winter. You're 16 years old. 25 people are sleeping around you. Your father is 2 feet away. Your cousin is snoring. A dog is curled up beside the fire. Outside, the Ice Age wind is howling through the darkness. And somehow, you still have the exact same hormones teenagers have today. So here's the question. Did ancient humans masturbate? And if they did, why didn't evolution get rid of it? Because on the surface, it makes absolutely no sense. Ice Age humans were fighting hunger, fighting cold, fighting injury, fighting predators. Natural selection is supposed to eliminate waste. Yet this behavior survived. Not for centuries, not for thousands of years, possibly for millions, which means either evolution made a mistake or we're missing something important. And that mystery begins inside a cave in Germany. In southwestern Germany, hidden inside a limestone cave called Hohle Fels, archaeologists made a discovery that sparked one of the strangest debates in prehistoric science. The year was 2004. Researchers were excavating a layer of sediment dating back roughly 28,000 years. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Fragments of stone, animal bones, the normal debris of ancient life. Then they found something different. 14 separate pieces of polished siltstone. Individually, they didn't look like much. But when researchers painstakingly assembled the fragments together, a very recognizable shape emerged. The finished object measured about 20 centimeters long, and it looked unmistakably like a human phallus. Almost immediately, the arguments began. And then there were scientists who looked at the object and said, "You're all overthinking this." According to them, the simplest explanation was also the most obvious. It was a sex toy, and surprisingly, they had evidence. Siltstone is relatively soft. If you tried to use it as a hammer for shaping flint tools, it would likely crack or shatter. The object also showed extensive polishing across its entire surface. Not just the tip, not just one section, almost the entire thing. A pattern consistent with repeated handling over a long period of time. At first glance, the conclusion seems obvious. Case closed, mystery solved. Except it wasn't. Because even if every archaeologist arguing over that stone is completely wrong, the next discovery makes the mystery much harder to dismiss. For a long time, many people assumed masturbation was simply a modern human habit, something tied to culture, society, or technology. Then scientists started looking beyond humans, and the pattern became impossible to ignore. In 2023, researcher Matilda Brindle and her colleagues set out to investigate the evolutionary history of the behavior across primates. Instead, they found something much stranger. The behavior kept appearing again and again and again. Chimpanzees, bonobos, macaques, capuchins, across the primate family tree. At first, it looked random. Then it started looking ancient, because when the same behavior repeatedly appears across dozens of related species, scientists begin asking a different question. Not, why does this species do it, but how far back does this go? The answer was startling. The researchers concluded that masturbation was likely present in the common ancestor shared by modern monkeys and apes. If that's true, then this behavior has been part of our evolutionary story for at least 40 million years. 40 million, not thousand, million, long before agriculture, long before cities, long before humans. And that changes the entire conversation, because accidents rarely survive 40 million years. Features do, which raises an even bigger question. If evolution kept this behavior around for that long, what exactly was it doing for us? If the primate evidence tells us this behavior is ancient, the archaeological evidence suggests humans may have been thinking about it for a very long time too. Then archaeologists found something unexpected, not on a cave wall, not on the floor, but carved into the ceiling above people's heads. At a site in southern France called Abri Castanet, When researchers turned over massive collapsed limestone slabs, they discovered something unexpected. The stone was covered with carvings, not mammoths, not bison, not hunting scenes, female genital imagery, dozens of them. The carvings were dated to roughly 37,000 years ago, making them some of the oldest known examples of symbolic human art. Think about that for a moment. People often imagine Ice Age humans thinking only about survival. The evidence suggests otherwise, and suddenly that strange stone from Germany doesn't seem quite so isolated anymore. No matter what the object actually was, it existed in a world where humans were clearly fascinated by intimate anatomy. Which raises another question. If this behavior really has existed for millions of years, why? Why would evolution preserve something that appears to waste time, energy, and opportunity? To answer that, scientists had to leave the archaeological record behind and start watching animals. While archaeologists debated ancient stones and cave carvings, biologists were uncovering clues in living species, and some of those clues were deeply strange. Take dolphins. Imagine studying dolphins for months. Then one afternoon, you watch one use an object in a way that definitely wasn't covered in your textbooks. Researchers have documented versions of this behavior across multiple dolphin populations. Not once, not twice, repeatedly, which immediately creates a problem. Dolphins are intelligent, highly social, and evolution tends to eliminate costly behaviors. So why does this one keep showing up? Then things get even stranger, because dolphins aren't the only example. In southern Africa, researchers studying Cape ground squirrels noticed a curious pattern. After mating, some males would retreat behind a rock and perform the behavior almost immediately after reproduction. At first glance, it looks completely irrational. The biological objective has been achieved, so why continue? The pattern appeared often enough that scientists began wondering whether it served some hidden function. But then researchers discovered something that shouldn't exist. Some animals perform the behavior even when it appears to reduce their chances of reproducing. And that's where the puzzle becomes genuinely difficult. Evolution is ruthless. If a trait hurts reproduction, it usually disappears. Yet this one survived. Across species, across environments, across millions of years, which creates a paradox. Evolution is supposed to reward reproduction, not undermine it, and yet the behavior remained. So either scientists were missing something important, or the entire question was more complicated than anyone realized. To find out, researchers put the behavior on trial. By this point, the evidence was overwhelming. The behavior was ancient, widespread, and still unexplained. So, imagine putting the behavior on trial, not in a human courtroom, but in the courtroom of natural selection, the most unforgiving judge in the history of life. Because evolution doesn't care about intentions. It doesn't care about comfort. It doesn't care about tradition. It only cares about one thing. Does a trait help organisms survive and reproduce? If the answer is no, the trait usually disappears. So how did this one survive for 40 million years? Scientists have proposed several explanations. None are perfect, but together they may reveal part of the answer. Theory number 1, stress regulation. Imagine living in the Ice Age. Every day is a struggle against starvation and predators. Your body is flooded with chronic stress hormones, which weaken your immune system and recovery. Some researchers believe masturbation helped regulate this stress by releasing chemicals associated with relaxation. In a hostile world, a temporary reduction in cortisol could offer a small, life-saving advantage. But stress relief doesn't explain everything. Animals perform the behavior even when they aren't stressed, so scientists looked elsewhere. Theory number 2, the sperm war. The second explanation is competition. In many species, a male gets only a few chances to mate, and when he does, his sperm must compete with other males. This is the sperm war. The theory suggests that removing older sperm may encourage the production of newer, more competitive sperm. If true, the behavior actually improves reproductive odds. But sperm competition doesn't explain why females do it too, which brings us to the final theory. Theory number 3, pathogen avoidance. In a prehistoric world without medicine, a simple transmitted infection was a death sentence. Every encounter carried risk. This theory suggests masturbation served a hygienic function, a biological flush. Clearing the reproductive tract of pathogens contracted during sex reduces the risk of infection. It may even explain why Cape ground squirrels perform the behavior immediately after mating. Note, no single theory explains everything. Females do it, males of all ranks do it, and it varies across species. Many scientists believe the answer is a combination of all three: stress regulation, sperm wars, and pathogen flushing. The case remains unsolved, but whatever the explanation is, evolution never got rid of it. Now for the strangest possibility of all. What if this behavior quietly helped shape who is alive today? If even one of those theories is correct, removing this behavior may have carried costs our ancestors couldn't afford. And suddenly the question isn't just about ancient humans, it's about you, because every person alive today is the product of an unbroken chain, stretching back millions of years. Break that chain once, and you disappear. So how did something potentially ancient become one of humanity's deepest taboos? The answer may lie in one of the biggest transformations in human history: agriculture. For most of human history, inheritance barely mattered. Then humans settled down. Property appeared, wealth appeared, and suddenly, knowing who fathered a child became important. As societies became more complex, rules surrounding sexuality became more restrictive, not because human biology changed, but because civilization changed. The culture evolved, the body didn't, and that's what makes this story so strange. Remember that 16-year-old sitting inside an Ice Age cave? He knew nothing about genetics or evolution, yet his body was following rules written millions of years before he was born. For 40 million years, predators changed, climates changed, continents moved, species appeared, species vanished, civilizations rose, civilizations collapsed, and somehow this behavior remained. Which brings us back to that stone buried in a German cave. Maybe it really was a sex toy. Maybe it wasn't. The truth is that we may never know. But after 40 million years of evidence, that question almost feels secondary. Because the real mystery was never the stone. The real mystery was never whether ancient humans did it. The real mystery is why nature kept finding reasons not to erase it. Maybe that's why a strange object buried for 28,000 years can still start arguments today. Because after all this time, we're still trying to understand ourselves. And perhaps that's the strangest clue of all. Because in the end, the mystery was us.